Short-term rentals could create investors financial freedom, but I see investors destroying their portfolios by making these mistakes every day. As an asset protection lawyer, there are 6 mistakes I help clients avoid. So if you're serious about building and protecting your wealth, here are some things to look out for. For example, I'm working with Carlos, a doctor by day and an investor by night. He's buying properties left and right, but he eventually finds himself torn between his medical practice and his investments. He starts feeling overwhelmed and starts to doubt whether short-term rentals are the right investment vehicle for him. We sit down together and I ask Carlos, what's important to you? What is it that you really want? He reminds me that he really wants to create passive income of $250,000 a year to help offset his medical practice so that he can spend more time with his family. But he's concerned about how much effort and time is required in order to not only invest in short-term rentals, but to manage them and make sure they perform. I asked him directly, Carlos, how many more properties do you need to meet that goal? His response, too many. I remind Carlos of the old maxim, less is sometimes more. So I suggest, what if you find luxury properties that generate $150,000 a year? Now all you need are 2 properties. If you buy right and you manage them right, you have your passive income, and you don't have to worry about so much stress. Carlos immediately lit up. He said, that's a great idea. Maybe I could sell some of my other properties so that I could afford the luxury ones. What Carlos really learned in that exercise is that he was not crystal clear on what he wanted. He knew he wanted passive income to replace his medical practice so that he could spend more time with his family. But his actual goal and his strategy did not line up with what he really wanted. You might be building something you don't actually want. So getting your why figured out will help you avoid that mistake. Next, never buy just for the tax benefits. As of this recording, there's some amazing tax benefits like accelerated bonus depreciation for purchasing an Airbnb. If you meet the Internal Revenue Code guidelines, you can get tens of thousands. In fact, I've seen some clients get hundreds of thousands of dollars back in a tax return. But what's the catch? As my good friend Ryan Bakey says, never let the tax tail wag the investment dog. Buying a property for the tax benefits is a terrible idea. I see people wanting to take advantage of this strategy and they rush into a purchase without doing their due diligence. In the process of doing so, they end up buying a lemon. The investors that truly create a thriving portfolio and create generational wealth are never this short-sighted. This ties back to having a clear outcome for you and your family. Why are you buying these properties anyway? Just for the tax benefits? Or are you buying them to change your future? I say get all the tax benefits that you can, but don't let it force you to ignore your due diligence and your long-term plans, which is similar to what happened to Scott. Scott is a short-term rental investor with 1 property, but he's chomping at the bit to build an Airbnb empire. He's found another property and he's ready to buy, but he's got one problem. Scott bought his first property in his personal name in a conventional loan. But now his financing options are severely limited because of his debt. He's got debt on his car, he's got debt on his house. He's still got all that college debt for the degree he doesn't even use anymore. This has greatly limited his ability for his financing for his next purchase. In other words, his DTI, debt to income ratio, is too high, and now it's limited his abilities and he cannot get the financing options that he really needs to be profitable. In general, this isn't a huge problem. Scott could go qualify for a commercial loan that does not consider his DTI, but as we all know, commercial loans are always a point or 2 higher than conventional mortgages. Because Scott ignored his DTI, he can't reasonably afford his next property. He came to me looking for advice, so I told Scott a few quick things. Number 1, you are going to run into this problem eventually anyway. You can only do up to 10 properties and conventional loans in your personal name, so it's probably important to start considering commercial loans as part of your strategy. Number 2, if you don't want to go that route, you've got to get your DTI down substantially. You can either do that by increasing your W-2 income, or you have to pay off that debt. So if you want to build your real estate empire, you need to start looking beyond conventional loans when running your numbers. But you also need to know what numbers to run. One of the worst mistakes I see short-term rental investors making is using 12-month returns as a predictor of future performance, which is strange, right? I mean, think about it. If you're investing in stocks, what do? You look back over the historical performance of that stock to see how well it's performed. But my clients and I have learned that looking back 12 months as a predictor of your future success paints too rosy of a picture and you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Instead, I suggest using STR Insights or AirDNA to run numbers for the last 3 to 6 months for your market and your property. Then compare those numbers from year over year to see the performance difference. I also like to look at the top 10% properties, the super properties, in those particular markets and look to see what distinguishes them from everyone else. What are the amenities that distinguish them? Is it their location? Is there something specific we can dig into to find out how to create a top 10% performance? After all, these properties are successful for a reason, and this extra due diligence builds in some margin for you too. Can you still make a profit if demand is down 25%? Can you afford 6 months of carry costs in another pandemic or black swan event? What if a guest burns down your kitchen and you have no revenue for several months? The empire builders I know look at all of this to buy right and hold, but they also know how to look at their numbers and when to fold. Do you? I have a good friend who has 3 beautiful properties in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. These were huge, beautiful properties that could sleep over 40 people at one time. But as time progressed, he started seeing an enormous pullback in bookings and profitability. My friend began to find out that new construction was going on all around him with newer amenities, newer design, and it was starting to pull all the bookings away from him. So he had a hard choice to make. He could reinvest another $1.5 million back into his properties, new paint, new furniture, new design, new amenities, or he could choose to sell these properties, redeploy that equity into a more profitable investment so that he was prepared for better returns for years to come. If it were me, I'd sell and move to a different market. But the real point here is that empire builders are regularly evaluating their portfolios and know when to exit to move to their next investment opportunity. Having a great cash-on-cash return is great to start off with, but major wealth builders are really focused on the return on equity. That's why you need to be evaluating every investment dollar you have at least quarterly to determine its returns. But there's a huge difference between choosing to sell a property and being forced to sell a property. As a lawyer, I can tell you right now, insurance is not enough. So what can you do? Jennifer came to me with 12 properties in Florida, making multi-6-figure income on her investments. Everything about these properties was pristine. I'm talking she had her pricing strategy right, her design looked amazing, she absolutely had all the amenities, she had super properties. But none of her properties were under a commercial insurance policy. And unfortunately, the law is going to always see these properties as a commercial enterprise. If she were to be sued right now, an unscrupulous lawyer could take everything, and it would be easy. So we immediately put a plan together for Jennifer that accomplishes several things. Number 1, we get the right type of commercial insurance coverage that provides her the protection that she needs. Number 2, we reorganize her legal structure to protect her and her family from greedy lawyers that may try to get to her assets personally. Number 3, we set up her estate planning to protect her legacy and ensure that it will pass to her family in the future. And yes, while all this takes time, effort, and resources to get done, Jennifer sleeps better at night knowing all of her hard work is protected. If you consider yourself an empire builder, you need to learn more about advanced asset protection strategies because unfortunately, an LLC by itself is just not enough. And the best place to start is watching this next video where I walk you through one of my favorite strategies to protect your assets from greedy lawyers. Click through to this video and I'll see you there.